Normal Platonic idea of a tyrant, making all these great promises of debt reform, which is exactly what Plato and Socrates say in the Republic, that the tyrant will promise to forgive debt. This is exactly what Caesar was doing. But the tyrant is actually a greedy man, a man who has got this twisted desire to become this ruler over this state. And this is precisely what Caesar did when he got in there. He essentially became a living god king when he went down. He even did things like plunder the Roman treasury, so he's not all innocent when you think about it. And was this actually what was going on in this instance? Was Caesar driven by greed, just like all the other optimates, but he figured a better way to package it that actually gave him political legitimacy to do so? Was this a case where you had greedy optimates who literally were fleecing Romans, which is all true? They were using usury, which is all true. They were replacing the natives with slaves, and they had literally left this giant underclass of fighting men who just did not want to be loyal to them in any way at all anymore. They hated them. And this was their stupidity. And these people needed to be shunted out because they were going to literally destroy Rome if they weren't stopped. And Caesar was a representative of them, a force vector that allowed them to actually punch back at these exploiters and finally transform the system, which is what happened with the empire. The empire was a reformation. When Caesar got into power, he opened the door for a total and permanent transformation of the Roman system forever. The introduction of an entirely new structure to Rome that was far more focused on equality and egalitarianism than was there before. I'll let you juggle that one inside of your noggin. Instead, the question we must ask is this situation currently taking place? Are we in the same structural process as they were? You can clearly see that the right and the left, even though they think they're smart and they complain about each other, are actually two symptoms of a similar structural problem. These same problems of inequality, debt exploitation, monopoly of wealth and property, all these things are taking place. The greed of the elite is clearly in this position. People are despondent and they want to find a way out, but they don't believe the system can actually offer them that. It's too well controlled. It's too much of a scam for this to happen. People are now openly calling for a messiah. People look to characters like Donald Trump, who I don't think is Julius Caesar-like at all. I think Donald Trump is probably closer to somebody like maybe Gracchi, maybe that, rich billionaire before, who said maybe we should peacefully reform things, and he just gets annihilated, this type of thing. But that aside, you notice the psychology around Trump. People are messianic towards Trump. Trump can literally do anything, but they're sort of like, Trump, please save us. Please, Donald Trump, save me, Donald Trump. People are craving for this. People want this to happen. You're noticing it with the left more and more and more. The people are getting more vitriol and more aggressive and more despondent. They're becoming more radical as things go forward. The energy and the temperature is rising. And so this means that we as predictors can ask ourselves a question. Is the end game of all of this going to be the rise of a tyrant? Are we in a position where these processes are not going to fix themselves? Nobody in the elite is incentivized to fix these, and nobody in the lower classes are just going to take this forever. Eventually, people will no longer believe in these systems and openly give themselves over to some type of savior. And if a man arises, if someone shows up that is able to drive that through, that has the force of personality, the charisma, if they're able to rise up, the energy will swell around them and they'll literally be able to do anything. They will be like Caesar, a Superman in our time who can create a historical moment and transform things. This seems beyond belief in our current paradigm, but everything about where we are right now is the same as ancient Rome. We might say to ourselves, well, no, a tyrant would be too much like Hitler, and that's the biggest taboo there could possibly be. Or a tyrant would be too much like Napoleon, and people just don't accept that anymore. But the thing is that in ancient Rome, there was the same psychology. A tyrant was the ultimate symbol of evil. It was very taboo to be a king or a tyrant. Caesar, his whole life, had awful problems with this, where people kept on saying, you're trying to be a king, you're trying to be a tyrant. And he was always trying to politically avoid this and dodge this accusation, because it wasn't good if he was seen this way. And it's the same situation we're in now. If somebody rose up as some arrogant, authoritarian tyrant of some sort, obviously a lot of slander would be thrown about them. There's a very serious taboo associated with this, but it didn't stop Caesar. And all these forces were able to actually burst through this and overcome this symbolic situation. So are we entering into an endgame of our current regime, our current structure, our current process, where this is almost inevitable? All I can tell you is that these trends are there. All the things that were there during the rise of Julius Caesar, they're here with us now. You can feel them when you go outside. You can feel them when you hear people say inflation, inflation, inflation. You hear people talking about a news topic, but I hear Caesarism. I hear that discontent. I hear people aware that the inequality is reaching its breaking point. Many people have predicted this stuff. Peter Turchin has talked about this problem where things like inequality get out of hand, and then the amount of alternate elites get out of hand, and then all of a sudden you're in this position where you've got a reactionary head of the snake and the will of resentment inside of the population, and these two things only need to marry, and then you have a political force that can take on the regime as it. So this is the question. These present trends are sitting right here. They are flowing somewhere. These processes have to unwind and play themselves out. Are we entering into an endgame? Are we about to see the rise of a Julius Caesar in the West?